Episode 3 Aelfa the Wise. Following her ascension to Duchess, Aelfa's lineage became the most important part of her life. At age 16, Aelfa married the son of a bishop, a man named Aethelstan, who was famed for his ability to mete out justice in his father's congregation. Aelfa was utterly devoted to Aethelstan, and together, over the course of their life, they gave birth to 7 children, and would remain married for the remainder of Aethelstan's life. Still, Aelfa did not forget the past, or the intrigues which bound her to her mother. The Duchess was notorious for the flock of women and gossips she surrounded herself with. They wrote her streams of letters and notes in an obscure code few others could read except the Duchess herself. Maturing into her 20s, Aelfa appeared to be a master of whispers and hearts, but was also ruthless in pursuit of 2 goals. The first of Aelfa's political ambitions was to weaken the Mercian nobility. At the start of her reign, Aelfa had parcelled out her own lands, and 3 sole earls owned 70% of Mercia. Aelfa was not prepared to be controlled by them. Between the age of 20 and 25, Aelfa seized upon the earls' own ambitions. They envied each other far more than they did the Duchess. Through conspiracy and complicated legislation, Aelfa destroyed these earls, arresting them for treason if they defied her request to submit land to the crown, and revoking titles of these proclaimed traitors. When Aelfa's own reasonable administrative limit had been reached, she parcelled out the remaining land to commoners and loyalists who would be indebted to her for generations. Once domestic matters had been solved, Aelfa turned these same tactics to the surrounding states. Aelfa's reign was one of constant expansion, dismantling and absorbing many kingdoms, including Powys, East Anglia, Gwent, Essex, Surrey, and Kent. Aelfa showed mercy to those captured in battle, though she did not shy away from imprisoning those she saw as threats, or perhaps more importantly, those who might parent future threats. By her mid-20s, Aelfa had doubled Mercia's borders, creating a large class of nobility too embroiled in their own petty feuds to consider national concerns. It was at this time Aelfa began to refer to herself as Queen again, for she had brought Mercia into a period of stability and peace unseen in Britain for centuries. Mercia spread from the Irish Sea to East Anglia and from Derby to Oxford. Aside from political matters, Aelfa showed great tenderness to her extended family. Her mother, Genevia, still in Greece, had mothered 2 daughters to the Greek duke she had long ago married. The duke himself had died, leaving Genevia and her daughters at the mercy of the child of the duke's first wife. In one of the greatest schemes of her life, Aelfa organised the escape of Genevia and her daughters, welcoming them back to Mercia as part of the royal family. Furthermore, Aelfa organised great marriages for her half-sisters. The eldest married a French duke, and the other a wealthy Jewish merchant. Aelfa kept in contact with them throughout her life, later recalling them back to Mercia when their marriages fell apart. Whilst her sisters had performed their own marital duty, Aelfa had thus far failed in her own. The Queen's children were born later in life, and with many years between them. Altogether, Aelfa and Aethelstan parented 7 children. First, there came 3 girls, Aelfa, Guinevere, and Genevia. Aelfa was heir for a long time and so married matrilinally, before passing away at 19 from pneumonia. Guinevere Willer married the future French king's brother and scandalised the royal court by taking 2 ducal lovers. By her mid-40s, Guinevere was a widow with 14 children, 3 of whom were acknowledged as illegitimate. When Guinevere's husband died, Aelfa ordered that she return home and, once there, forced Guinevere to become a nun. Genevia was the least memorable of the 3 daughters. She was engaged to the grandson of the King of Pictland, modern-day Scotland, and would probably have had been queen if she had not perished at age 20, also from pneumonia. After the girls, there was a gap, before the birth of a son, Joshua, assured Aelfa's legacy. Joshua grew to be a sensible and frugal man, which was often seen to annoy the more impulsive queen. Against Aelfa's wishes, Joshua married a lower noble, Ealhglith. Unfortunately for Ealhglith, Aelfa was unused to being denied, and had ambitions on Joshua marrying his cousin, Aelfa's niece through her half-sister Barbara. In what is often considered to be Aelfa's first political blunder, she ordered Alglith to be killed. Unfortunately, the assassin did not keep quiet, and Aelfa's involvement became common knowledge. Joshua resented his mother for years afterwards, but still agreed to marry his cousin Bela. 3 more sons were born to Aelfa and Aethelstan, including Ulfric, Leo, and Ethelwald. Ulfric died shortly after being granted the lordship of Suffolk, passing it on to his infant son, who would later form his own branch of House Willow. The latter 2 brothers, Ethelwald and Leo, notoriously hated each other. This came to a head in Aelfa's later years. By the time the Queen was 50, she was widely accepted to be Aelfa the Wise of Mercia. Though there were many claims to the land she had taken, foreign rulers feared crossing her and her ever-growing army of loyalists. She was universally considered to be a shrewd yet compassionate ruler, having used underhand methods to achieve national prosperity. Aelfa had bound her nobles into heavier contracts, whilst placating them with extravagant feasts. She abolished barbaric laws and became a great friend of the Mercian mayors when their coffers were empty. Aelfa's first 44 years of ruling were a golden age of wealth, development, and constant victory. The next 20 years, however, are an altogether different story.